Just how surprising was the Saints win over the Buccaneers in week 8?
It's definitely more than surprising, at least to me, just because you look at it and you say, okay, first and foremost, the Bucks are one of the better teams in the league. Conference aside, the Bucks have just been playing phenomenal football. Tom Brady's playing at an MVP caliber level. The defense has been doing their jobs. They haven't been highly successful, at least. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that they're one of the most dominant defenses outside of their rush defense, but they're getting the job done. You know what I mean? They're making sure that teams are kind of within a certain range. Tom Brady's making sure that the offense is clicking. But to get to the point, like we said, we didn't see this coming. So then obviously the Saints go out and win this game, but they do it in a convincing fashion without their starting quarterback that is Jameis Winston, without really a super successful run game. I mean, outside of Jameis's 4 big scrambles for 40 yards, I mean, we're looking at a measly 112 yards as a team rushed, which would be a significant decrease in terms of total yards. But I mean, we're looking at 152 with Jameis's rushes included for 4.8 yards a carry. They were able to keep Alvin Kamara in check in terms of the Bucks defense for 61 total yards at 3.2 yards per carry. But Trevor Siemian, man, we have to give the man some credit. He came in there, he did what he needed to do. 16 of 29 for 159 yards and a touchdown. Nothing crazy, nothing flashy, but he did make a couple of good throws to put them in a position to win. And the Saints did what they needed to do. The Saints defense, man, let's also give them a lot of kudos. They sacked Tom Brady 3 times. They also forced 3 turnovers with 2 interceptions and a strip sack. So the Saints defense stepped up where it needed to. Their offense did just enough to go out there and score enough points to put them in a comfortable position to win. And it just looked like the Saints were the better team today. I don't necessarily know if the Bucks were kind of prepared for the rush that was going to end up coming from the Saints, or I don't know if they maybe thought that this was going to be an easier game once Jameis went out. Because I mean, like, let's be realistic. We're looking at a 16-7 halftime score, and then out of nowhere, the Bucks are up for 14 points in the third. But then they can't contain New Orleans in the fourth, and they give up 13 points. So it kind of went back and forth up until later part of the fourth quarter. And it just looked like the Bucks did not have it going today. I mean, we've talked about this before. In order for the Bucks to win, they have to run the football. They play their best football when they run the football. They only had 14 total rushes. Granted, it was for 71 yards at 5.1 a clip, but that's just not going to get it done. I understand that they were behind for a decent amount of this game, but you do have to keep the run honest. You have to keep that run consistent in order to create that play action, and so that the receivers can get separation downfield. So nothing too crazy here. It was a good football game, but it really just does show any given Sunday. I mean, any team can beat anybody. And again, the Saints are no bad team. They're no scrub. But you just didn't expect it this Sunday the way that the Bucks have been playing thus far. And you would have thought that with Jameis Winston getting hurt, that would have been the Buccaneers' opportunity to come back into this game. But the defense, like I had said earlier, stepped up and really made life a living hell for Tom. And everybody knows when you get Tom rattled in the pocket and you kind of hit him a few times and you make his life a little bit miserable, he does tend to make some mistakes. The interceptions are a part of the game. He's been playing relatively mistake-less or mistake-free for the most part of the season. But the Saints created turnovers, and I believe that's the contributing factor as to why they won this game.
So when I look at this game in its totality, I got to be honest. I thought New Orleans played a phenomenal game on both sides of the ball. Even after Jameis went out, I thought Trevor Siemian, he was inserted into the lineup, and I thought he played admirable football. Was he perfect? No, because there were a couple mistakes that he made, just some missed throws, some mistimed passes. But by and large, Trevor Siemian hasn't played a starting role in probably 3 years. So getting thrusted into that starting role after Jameis went out, I thought he played pretty well. But really what I want to focus on is that defense. And the fact of the matter is that they were able to beat Tampa by forcing turnovers in this game. They got 2 off of Tom as far as interceptions go, and then they also got the strip sack against them. When you get 3 turnovers against Tom Brady, that's a solid performance to be proud of. Even though that they did give up 27 points and there were stretches where Tampa really were hitting their strides offensively. When the moments mattered the most, New Orleans' defense stepped up when it needed to, and they were able to give that offense that was Jameis-less after Jameis went out with that potentially significant knee injury, and gave their offense a short field to work with. And when I look at New Orleans, this is still a team to be reckoned with. Granted, I think a lot of people wrote them off just because I think Tampa's been so dominant this year. But New Orleans is sitting at a 5-2 record. They're only one game back of Tampa as far as in the win column. And Tampa's going to have their bye week next week. So if New Orleans wins their game next week, they're going to be tied with Tampa at 6-2 after week 9, which would be a phenomenal start for the Saints after last year they lost Drew Brees to retirement, and I think a lot of people were expecting a step back from this team, but they have played extremely well. And Jameis, up until this point, I thought was playing kind of like a game manager type of play and was effective in that role. But now we're going to see whether or not that Trevor Siemian will be the guy to be able to carry them, because it doesn't look like Jameis is going to be returning to the football field anytime soon this season. So this is a great win for New Orleans. I got nothing else to say about New Orleans in that regard. Now, when it comes to Tampa, Tampa shot themselves in the foot today. There's no other way to say it. The turnovers hurt. Giving up 3 sacks, it doesn't help either. But really, the main point that I got to focus on with Tampa is the amount of penalties that they had in this game. They had 11 penalties for almost 100 penalty yards attached to that. And there were some crucial penalties that they picked up, especially late in the game defensively. It sets your team so far behind the 8 ball when you're getting those numbers of penalties in this game. And hell, I mean, had Tampa cut half the penalties in this game, more than likely they would have been walking out of New Orleans with the win. But you tie that in with the amount of turnovers that they had. Tom did not have his best game, even though that he threw 4 touchdowns, which is just crazy to say. Throwing 4 touchdowns, and this was probably one of his worst performances of the year. I mean, it kind of says something about Tom Brady being able to rise against the adversity. But he had that pick 6 at the end of the game that gave New Orleans that 9-point lead, and then after that it was pretty much over. So when I look at Tampa here, this looked like a trap game. This is their game right before their bye week going into week 9, and they got off to a very slow start in this game. And it's kind of something that I've noticed about Tampa is in some of these games early on through the first quarter or two, they get off to slow starts and then they kind of really pick it up in the third and fourth quarter. That is going to have to be something that they're going to focus on as they get into the second half of the season. They're going to have to get a more solid start in some of these games. It doesn't account for last week when they got up to a 35-3 start against Chicago, but against better quality teams, they have been getting off to slow starts, and that's going to be something to keep in mind as the season progresses. I'm not worried about Tampa. Tampa's a very good team still, but I think we got to give a lot of credit to New Orleans. I think a lot of people were not really giving New Orleans that much of a chance this season after Drew Brees had retired, but they're sitting one game behind Tampa in the NFC South, and pretty much I think everybody had this thing locked up for Tampa going into this season as far as the division goes. So give the players credit for New Orleans. They stepped up when they needed to today. And, it really goes to show, you got to play these games out because, like Kevin and I had said last week, we both had Tampa winning this game very easily. But New Orleans proved us wrong. And I got to give them credit for that. So, all in all, great performance from New Orleans in this game. And as far as Tampa goes, they're going to have to look at the film tomorrow and throughout the week, and they're going to have to learn from their mistakes because there were plenty of mistakes to pick apart from this game.